Hello, and welcome to Know Before You Go, a program of the Dominican Central Province of St. Albert the Great that allows us to take a look ahead at the upcoming weekend's readings. I am Father Jim Marchionda, Provincial of the Chicago Dominicans, and I am happy to be with you once again as we approach the 23rd Sunday of Ordinary Time. The readings for this Sunday are very challenging, and they will call forth a great deal of internal meditation from each of us. The first reading from the prophet Ezekiel, the second reading from St. Paul's letter to the Romans, and the third from the Gospel of Matthew. And I'll take them in a little bit different order. The prophet Ezekiel talks about the people of Israel and tells them that they are keepers of God's house. They are keepers of God's house, and so it is their responsibility to dissuade the wicked from their ways. He says, if you do not dissuade them and they sin, the guilt is on you. You're responsible, and you will pay the price for their sin because you failed to tell them of their sin. If you do tell them of their sin, however, and they continue, then the guilt will be theirs, and you will be saved because you have done your duty. You are the keeper of God's house. You are the one responsible for letting the Word of God be known, for letting the mind of God be known, the heart of God, in the middle of all the turmoil that the world can give to us. We can hear that today. We are the keepers of the mind of God. And we have a responsibility to speak what we believe God hopes for our world. The Gospel of St. Matthew sort of parallels that in dealing with difficult situations. And Jesus tells a parable. He says, if someone sins, man or woman, you should go and speak directly to them about their sin. If they listen to you, then you've won them over. If they don't listen to you, then you should go tell one or two others, so there are witnesses to the fact that you're trying to set things straight. If they still don't listen to you and the other witnesses, then you should tell the church. And if they still don't listen to the church, then Jesus says you should treat them like you would treat a Gentile or a tax collector. And what is that? Pray tell. Father Scott preached about this last week. The way Jesus treated Gentiles and tax collectors was to love them, was to keep giving them second chances. I wonder if love is the challenge of what we are supposed to do and how we are supposed to treat people, even if we can't win them over to our side. That is definitely what St. Paul says in his letter to the Romans. He says, owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. Owe nothing to anyone except to love one another. And then he goes on to name all of the commandments. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not bear false witness. He lists all the commandments that you know, and he says that they are all tied up in love of neighbor as yourself. Love does no evil to the neighbor, Paul says to the Romans. Love is the fulfillment of every law. All of the rest of them are summed up in love of neighbor. Interesting that love seems to be the answer to the very challenging reading from Ezekiel and the Gospel of St. Matthew. Even though both readings challenge us to be honest and to confront difficult situations in our own time, the bottom line and the end of the story is still love, according to St. Paul. And that without love, I wonder if any of our words mean anything at all. My friends, I'm not perceiving a great deal of love in the discourse that I'm seeing in the world today. I'm not hearing voices of love in the discourse among our politicians. I watched both party conventions in the last 2 weeks, the Democratic National Convention and the Republican National Convention. And I did not hear discourses of love as much as antagonism and attack and accusation, and not things that build us, but things that seem to divide us. Even though we have to speak the truth, even though we are challenged to say what we believe the truth is, let us not leave love out of the equation. If we speak truth without love, then the truth is like a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal, St. Paul says. No matter how challenging it might be, no matter how difficult, let us not leave love out of the equation. If we are only criticizing, judging, condemning, we might be right. We might have valid points of view and opinions. But if that's all we're doing, without love, then we're not doing it as Christians do it. And those of us who are Christian, who claim to be Christian, have a sure responsibility to love, no matter how often or to what degree we must confront other people. Isn't this a challenge, my friends? Doesn't the 23rd Sunday of Ordinary Time present us with such a profound challenge? They're tough readings. They say, stand up for what you know to be right. Yes, Christians, stand up for what you know to be right. Say what you have to say. Try to do so convincingly. Try to win over people. Try to win over people not to your opinion, but to the truth, which you think the truth of God is in our time and in our world. But in the end, do it in love, or don't do it. Do it in love, or don't do it. These are tough readings. I invite you to sit with them today. Don't just read them. They're too powerful. They're too strong. Look at them. Meditate on them. Wrestle with them. Let them wrestle with you. Let them speak to you. Let them, in the midst of all this turmoil and all this political drama, let them speak to you of what you believe God's truth in this world is. And let them speak to you of what you might have to say aloud to others. And let them speak to you of the love that needs to be your foundation in anything and everything you say. God bless you and your families.